Welcome to Indie Music Podcast, episode 314, Online versus One-on-One Lessons and Learning to Learn. Indie Music Podcast now has a Patreon at patreon.com/indie_musiccast, and we invite you to become a member for exclusive benefits. For next to nothing per month, you can get members-only podcast video, early access to upcoming episodes, merch, and more. This morning, Matt and I get together for coffee and discuss our experiences with online learning courses, taking one-on-one lessons and learning techniques. Enjoy the show.
Good morning, Doug.
Hey, there you are. Good morning.
You know, I can't start the video until it makes me agree that I'm being recorded. So I have to agree to myself sight unseen.
I wonder if that's a preference. I'll look.
It's not my preference, I'll tell you that.
Not this moment. Yeah, I'll double check and see.
That's funny.
Although with privacy, that may not be a way around that. So
yeah, I'm okay with that. There's other ways to see how I look on camera. All right, man.
You look fantastic on camera.
Oh, thank you. You look fantastic too. I like your jacket.
Oh, thanks. I've had this for a very long time.
So you're beanie-less, I guess that means that spring is springing in your area?
Yeah, it was snowing last night, and then it's a beautiful sunny morning this morning. So
all right. It's snowing here, but it's snowing pollen.
We're in that kind of bipolar phase of spring, not spring.
Yeah. Yeah. Pollen's the only thing that's snowing here right now.
Yeah, I guess what, tree pollen?
Tree pollen. It's killing me.
And don't you have like big trees all over the top above your studio and everything? Yeah.
Trees everywhere. It's the pines that'll get you. Yeah. I'm on a couple of different things to help with that, so I don't, feel like checking out. Anyway, glad it's the weekend. How about you?
Oh yeah, definitely. It was just moving slow this morning. Topic ideas weren't really coming. What's your topic process like?
Well, my topic process, it's a little harder now because it's enough for me to try to come up with a topic for the DIY music chat every week, although I've been a little bit better about doing that now 4 weeks at a time, although I changed it up this week. And sometimes I reuse that topic idea if I think it's good food for thought for us, but usually it's just whatever I happen to be wrestling with or dwelling on or whatever's on my mind, or occasionally something that's timely, but this week not so much.
It just depends on what's going on during the week, I think.
Yeah.
And sometimes when it's a slow week or whatever, it's just like, it's as much of a creative process to come up with topics as it is to create them, the content.
It is.
And, sometimes I go out, look for inspiration, and that might be just like search on something and see what kind of related topics come up. Or scroll through I scroll through YouTube sometimes because my channel's not my channel, but my feed is relevant to my interests, and so there's a lot of things that come up there that give me ideas. But other than that, it's what kind of stuff have I been working or doing or thinking about during the week, which is what led me to today's topic.
Right. I kind of go, well, this is what I'm interested in talking about, but have we talked about this already? Did we cover this? And is this of interest to our listeners?
Oh, I don't really care about that.
If it interests us, then it makes good conversation. That should be interesting to somebody, right? That makes sense. Well, for me, this has been this week. I've actually been productive. I've done some, I've done some client work. I've done a couple of TikToks. I've kind of refigured out how to do that so that I can do that more regularly, which is good. But I've also been back on my learning. I've been watching some kind of online courses, and I was kind of like, well, that's where I'm at. I'm in a not a rebuilding phase, but just kind of like a revisiting the basics kind of thing. And
Yeah.
that's where I'm at this week.
Yeah. Well, sometimes like gear can inspire you, you know. And I'm not going to get into it right now, but so a new piece of gear arrived, and I might talk about that in a different episode or in my own channels or whatever. But and that got me thinking that that I've got some, you know, found myself being kind of excited to like get back in and start doing some more serious practicing and stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
And that and I've currently got a lot of resources online that I subscribe to. Some are paid, and these are you know, online learning for guitar, bass guitar, and you know, and music theory in general and stuff like that. And I got to thinking that I've had a lot of really great teachers along the way too. And one of the things about studying online, self-paced stuff, you know, with the subscribe for training video type of thing, is I was trying to think, because I really like it because it's self-paced and I can kind of pick and choose what I'm interested in. But there's an accountability that doesn't really exist there when that you have when you're working with a person, you know. Right. And sometimes I admit I need that accountability.
You need that kick in the butt.
Yeah. No, I need that fear of guilt of no, I didn't do the work, you know. To push me sometimes as well, you know, and that type of thing can uncomfortably move you through whatever you're stuck on, you know. So that's another element that I think has a lot of value. And it's really nice to work with another person sometimes, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
The downside is that the face-to-face is it's quite a bit more expensive than you know, than your online training sites or learning sites, you know. So so there's like I have to weigh the cost. So I kind of like to pepper it with some online lessons. I like to pepper the online lessons with some occasional face-to-face lessons, and because the face-to-face ones, you can go, hey, I'm really interested in like looking at this really specific thing that might be a deeper dive than what you get in your video training stuff. And I think that's where you know, the face-to-face really is really more value.
Yeah, there's definitely pros and cons to each. I mean, I do a lot of online learning, to be honest, and there it's both paid and free. And so I totally agree with the accountability factor. I mean, it's the double-edged sword, right? You know, if you have a busy schedule, the online self-paced is great because you can fit it in when you need to. On the other hand, you know, very often that same kind of lack of urgency kind of makes you either, like, I have courses that I didn't even remember that I signed up for until we started talking about this that I never finished and never went back to because well, either I kind of like, well, that's not where I'm at right now, that's not what I want to be learning right now, or you know, it just it became so non-urgent that it just kind of fell off the radar. So there's that. So the lack of accountability is a thing. But the last time I took one-on-one stuff was in-person singing lessons, and I did end up quitting that because I wasn't doing the homework, and I was like, you know what, I don't want to waste either one of our time. I haven't had time to work on the things that you've given me to work on, and I keep coming in here and going over the same stuff basically because it didn't progress. And so I'm like, you know, let's just let's revisit this when I have more time to dedicate to this, because it's not fair to either one of us.
Yeah, and I know that we have hit on this topic before, but we haven't showcased this topic.
Right.
Because I recall talking about
guitar lessons
and some of the teachers, and one of the cool things is that you have access to musicians for taking lessons from in these online schools that you probably may not ever have a really good chance of getting a lesson in person.
That's a good point.
And so that's another really what I see as a benefit from there. I mean, of the people that you can study under, and
you have access to people that you wouldn't normally have access
to. Yeah. Now, one of the things I found is that most of them are offering one-on-one lessons through the online schools, and so and I haven't done that. One's a little bit of an intimidation factor of do I really want to go try to take a lesson from a hero,
right?
Where
have my hero find out just how bad I am at this, and I'll never be able to look at them the same way again.
No, and, you got to remember they're just other people,
yeah, no.
But that my own self always holds me up on that, and which isn't that always the case, that I'm always in my own way, but I think I want to do that, but I always find that, maybe I should try to master their course first.
Right. Get to a certain level before you. Yeah.
But there's always, it seems like there's something, it's usually technical aspects of the work that take the longest, and it's great. So yeah, I can learn whatever, I can learn a riff or a groove or something like that, and I got it, but man, I can't play it at speed. And then it's months of working on that to get it up to speed. So it's to the point where it's under your fingers, you've developed the technique, you've got the muscle memory, and you're putting the left and right hand coordination together, and just everything is working the way that you want it to, and I find that to be the hardest part. It's not hard to learn a groove slow, and it's which is, I think, is a really good thing to do. But then building it up to speed and kind of like pushing it. I do these exercises where with the metronome, and I have a cool metronome that like every whatever bars I want to tell it to, it'll increase the BPM by
that's cool.
5, and so I'll start at low, and then I'll go through, I'll set it up for the number of bars that the thing that I'm working on is, and then I'll go through it, and maybe so every whatever in bars it increases up to what I'm trying to go for, and then finding what the limit is on there. And
so are you saying it's physically hard, or are you saying it's hard to pace yourself because it's going to take a long time to get where you want to go?
For me, it's been physically hard, which equates to it takes a long time.
I see.
And I don't know why that is. My hand structure, just the way I'm built, I wasn't as much as I'd like to be a shredder. There's something there. There's an aspect of a physical aspect that I just continually work on. I've never gotten to the point that I'd like to be. Love to be a killer sweep player, and and be able to rip gambali lines and and all that stuff, but but so I practice that, and I do those things at my speed, but
yeah, and that's interesting. So like if you had a weekly lesson, you may not be able to get through where you wanted to be in a week to come back and have your follow-up lesson, for instance.
And so it's a lot of it though is concept, and and with the one-on-one lessons, obviously record those, and can continue to go back to them. It's trying to preserve everything that you that was offered to you during that face-to-face lesson, that might be a little bit more difficult. Making sure you take good notes. And
I had a composition book that I took every week to my voice lessons, and I wrote down all the things that I needed to work on.
But isn't it hard to take notes while you're,
of course,
so it's like someone's talking to you and you're trying to, and it's, so I always try to not take notes while they're talking, because I end up missing more than I'm taking notes on. And so I try to focus on them. And then if time, is to then take notes and then go back and review with them at the end of the lesson to see if I have missed anything or what the goals are for the next time, and have like a 10-minute block of here's what I'm taking with me this time type of discussion.
I think if you're able to record them and then you can review them and take notes from the recording, that will less take you out of the moment, right? So things like that I think are good, because I get kind of worried that what am I going to forget during lessons, especially if they're not recorded. And I've had many just because we're in person, it's not on video, and and I ended up with a scratch sheet on on a template of fretboard grids of different things, and taking it back and then trying to keep that in context of what the lesson was about and what am I trying to learn here. Okay, so now we're into something that is an interesting discussion, which is how to best how to get the most out of your lesson. And I think when you're in school, real school, that becomes a bit of a trial and error. What works for you, what doesn't. I don't even know what people do now. I know they're all sitting there with their laptops or their tablets, and are they typing notes? Are they browsing Instagram and pretending to listen? I don't know what people are doing now. I used to take an actual notebook and take handwritten notes, and I didn't always write down the right things. And sometimes I wrote down things that afterwards that I didn't know what they referred to, because they didn't make sense. But I think that an effective thing is to kind of like write down key concepts and any like little nuggets of information, and then go back and, if you can, right after your course or class or meeting, review those notes and make additional notes to clarify things and solidify them in your mind. I think that's an effective technique.
So learning to learn, basically.
Learning to learn.
Which is a big thing.
And that's different for everybody. Everybody learns in a different way. Everybody recovers information in a different way from your whatever notes you took.
I mean, when I was in college, it was textbooks and highlighters, and I would read through the entire text, highlighting what I thought was important as I would go. And then I would come back and I would reread just my highlights before tests and things like that. Or as related to the project that might be involved in that particular class and things. And that for me was a realization of, this is a technique that works for me, and learning to learn that I didn't have before. It was just sort of a thing that I started doing that worked. And then I started retaining more, and my grades came up, and and I started succeeding more in college as a result of just following a learning technique, which I always valued that a great deal, and continue to do that type of thing.
Well, that's a good question. Do you do that when you read, like, I don't know if you read business books or nonfiction books now to keep up your learning in certain areas? Do you do that with those books? Some people do.
I do most of my reading on Kindle,
and
which allows me to highlight.
Right.
and save highlights. And yes, so I do.
Okay. Interesting.
In that way. I don't read much paper anymore.
I read a lot of paper books, and I have my father was a librarian, and I have instilled in me from a very young age not to deface books.
Yeah.
So I have a very, I physically cannot highlight in a book that I care about, and I cannot dog ear pages in a book that I care about. I will, however, take a pencil and lightly underline sections or occasionally make notes in the margin because I know that those can be erased.
Yeah. I came from the school of thought that a well-used battered book was more valuable than one that was pristine. Brand new. Yeah.
I don't know why I feel like it's like a resale value thing, but I will tell you that if I buy a book, and I buy a lot of used books, if I buy a book used and I start reading it and it's got like underlines and highlights, and this is a kind of an example of what I was saying about note taking. You don't always write down what you think is a key concept in the moment, but it turns out later that that's not as important as something you missed. Well, I find it's fascinating when you buy a used book and somebody else has gone through it with a highlighter or written notes or underlined things. They're not always underlining the same things that you would underline if you were going through it.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's not a key concept, or why is that important to you? That doesn't seem to be what they were talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And maybe not in the context of learning, but of interest. And let's say you're long past grandfather, you've got a few books or something like that, and they were completely marked up and dog-eared and stuff like that. When you go into those, it's not about necessarily what you're interested in. It's discovering what they were interested in. And it may be nonfiction, or fiction. It doesn't really matter. It might be even more interesting if it was a fiction book, to see the kind of things that where they dog-eared. Now, as far as dog ears, for me, it was where I stopped reading for the night, and picked up for the next day. I never really dog-eared to mark a page for any other purpose other than this is where, it was kind of like a bookmark for me. But in study, though, the highlighter was a major part of that, because then my intent, in that type of reading and learning was I wanted to read the whole thing once. I didn't want to read the whole thing twice. I just wanted to read what I thought was important the second time.
That makes sense.
Which basically went along with either what I thought was important or what was indicated as important from the study notes. So if you take that kind of thing to your music learning, from teachers, and I have folders of lesson material from over the years, and and trying to what was the sheet? What were we actually talking about? Or I have it in my head that I remember this lesson that I had, and I'm trying to find that specific notes for that lesson and things, and I've really got like a binder of loose leaves, that is organized by, it's organized by instructor, and then in the order that we were covering things, but normally not well labeled, or and not a whole lot of notes. It's mostly notation and different charts and things like that. So
that's hard, because once you put stuff into a folder, and I'm thinking about this is true of my computer too. Once you put stuff in a folder, you're not going to go back to it and revisit it very often, because it's closed off. It's self-contained and it's put away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The stuff that I'm working on stays on my music stand. I don't put it away, because it's the same thing as don't put your guitar in its case, and so keep your instrument readily available, and then keep the stuff that you're working on readily available too, however you want to do that. And for me, it's the music stand right next to the guitar that's out, and so I can just pick up and work on the stuff that I was, interested in working on, or had been, and some of that stuff's been on there for a year, man,
Yeah.
and I've got several pages of things that are on there. So
Yeah, a year's not that long
no,
in the grand scheme.
no.
Well, what's the saying? We people tend to overestimate what they can get done in a year, but underestimate what they can get done in 10 years.
Yeah. So
What's
God.
your take on in-person learning? I mean, in-person one-on-one versus, I mean, as a distilling it down,
Well,
one-on-one versus just kind of a course.
yeah, in today's um technology and what's available to us, compared to then, which is decades ago.
Mm-hmm.
um um at that time, that you really only had in-person lessons.
Sure, I remember.
I traveled for lessons,
Okay.
and to go with specific people that might be up in my area, up in Chicago, or or whatever, and actually spent hours driving to go take
Wow.
lessons. Um and then with the advent of technology, then we started being able to share some files and things like that. We didn't have really video, but I could go take a lesson, and then I could communicate with that person via email, and actually, as opposed to phone, and actually share ideas and notes and things like that, on on some type of PDF or whatever, and that helped. And then now today we've got all that plus the online, and I think it all works together.
Yeah.
For me, it's about an 80-20 mix. And that's kind of budget oriented as well, because it's much more affordable to take online lessons through a
site, like a
online
course.
learning school,
Yep.
courses. And then there's online lessons directly with instructors, which is pretty much replaced going to someone's,
Sure. Yeah.
basement and practicing with them or whatever, and learning, or going down to the music store, which I used to do a lot, and taking lessons from cats that worked in the music store. So they were either teaching, and when they weren't teaching, they were selling instruments and stuff out front. So
Yeah, I imagine they still do that. That's where my kids took lessons, and that's where I took voice lessons, was at the music store.
So my take is kind of a mix of things, because the experiences are different, and it's fun. If you find someone that you really like, that sometimes you can approach someone and go, "Hey, would you be interested in giving me a lesson?" Or like, "Oh, no way, I don't teach," and but so it's not necessarily always trying to find someone who's advertising themselves as a teacher. Sometimes you can approach people that maybe heard them play out or something like that, and you happen to know them more than just being in a dark corner of a club where they were playing,
Right.
But to the point where you can approach them and go, "I really liked what you're doing tonight. I'd like to learn more about it. What would you be interested in giving me a 1 hour lesson?" And actually approaching somebody for that. So, and I don't know how often people do that anymore, but we used to do that all the time.
Either. I've never done that, but I can see doing that. I do think that more people, and this is a perception thing, over the last couple of years, as touring kind of dried up and income streams kind of dried up and people stopped buying CDs and all that stuff, that more people than ever are offering online one-on-one lessons than I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Partly because it's easier, and partly because people are looking for alternate income streams as musicians.
That and that's not just limited to semi-pro. I've seen a lot of professional, like high level musicians who are one-on-one Skype is on their website, and so and that's over the a lot more over the last couple of years, where they've really said we're going to supplement income through teaching. And
that's what I mean.
And I see that a lot. So I think the opportunities to learn from your heroes are a lot greater now than they used to be.
I agree. I also do think that you want to be at a level, because you're not going to go to Tim Pierce to learn your cowboy chords. You're going to want to
Yeah.
go to somebody at a certain level for more advanced techniques and refinement.
Yeah. And at the rate, you kind of want to maximize that. So,
sure.
Yeah. So put
Yeah.
a dollar value on your skill level, and then take that and figure out who's teaching within that dollar value, so.
Right. Yeah. Now, I want to say that one-on-one stuff, beyond making sure that it's at your level, know that the benefit is that it's personalized. It's going to be tailored to what you want to learn, and it's going to be accountable. But the flip side is that it's probably going to take longer, and it's probably going to be something that you have to schedule, carve out time, and make time for on a regular basis, because it's not going to work around your schedule as much as
it's definitely going to be more expensive, but that's because you're paying someone for that individualized learning experience, and that in and of itself has that extra value.
Yeah. But I
don't know if I answered your question or not, though. But
no, I think so. I mean, it was just
80-20-ish somewhere in there.
It was more of a general question. But yeah, then there's the schools, like the one that what's the name of the one that you're using?
I like TrueFire.
Right.
We're not sponsored, but yeah, no. that's who I like.
And what's the one that I'm signed up with? Guitar Zoom, that I completely forgot I was signed up with it. And the cool thing about sites like that is that they are broad, and you can dial down to certain lessons, learning your blues chords, learning bar chords, learning how to write riffs, learning how to solo. You can drill down within these kind of comprehensive sites to the things that you specifically want to learn, and be self-paced about it. But again, you have to be self-starter. You have to hold yourself accountable for the practice and the learning. And I mean, it can be hard when you see everybody doing stuff online in their videos, and everybody seems to be, the whole online community is often about the highlight reel and not about the climbing the mountain. And so there's kind of like this almost built-in feeling of you want to jump to the finish line. And that's not something that happens with guitar practice or singing practice or any practice. I mean, it takes time, and it takes regular dedication, and you do kind of have to learn how to learn as you go, and go, okay, highlighting a book works for me, or, daily practice at 10 a.m. works for me, or however you learn is something that you have to figure out and implement.
So what's one specific thing you're going to work on this week?
One specific thing that I'm going to work on this week, I am in the middle of a vocal course, and I'm going to see if I can get to the next level of the course this week. I try to level up every couple of weeks.
Okay.
What about you?
I got this book that I got a couple years ago that I got into. I don't remember exactly how many sections there are on it. It's probably approximately 50, and I've made it up to like 30, and then stopped, and then started again and made it back up to 30. And this week I'm going to start again. It's on sweep picking arpeggios.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm going to start again and see if I can get further. So that's what I'll do this week.
When you say start again, do you mean at the beginning?
Yes, I've been going back and then reworking it, because it's like I work on it for a while, and then I leave it and I go on and I like work on something else or whatever. And when I come back, it's like, if I tried to start at 30 again, I don't have it still.
Right.
It goes away. So it's one of the frustrating things for some things that are technique related, that if you don't, it's not, you got to make it part of your playing. And if it's not really part of your playing, then it just sort of fades away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And I haven't really been able to figure out how to incorporate these techniques into my playing, and I want to. I think they're cool. I'd like to be able to, and I think that it has to do, maybe I could play some sweep arpeggios through chord changes. And so I need, that's another thing that I want to do with this, is to actually figure out a way to make it musical. So I think that's what's lacking from that training. A lot of it is etudes and things like that, and which are cool. And I think I want to do more etudes because those make practice musical. And and then those always for me relate to new ideas on writing new music myself. So I like to do those because it's fun to take an etude and then change it up, make it your own, change, whatever, and come up with a new melody, for the changes in the etude or something like that, and kind of make something new from it.
Yeah, I think that's important that you go back to one, because all of this stuff builds on a foundation, and the foundation of any learning can crumble. And you're never too old to revisit the basics, and I think the basics are important to revisit.
It doesn't take too long to get through.
No.
The first 10, I mean, I sit down for a good solid hour practice if I'm focused, and make it through the first 10 sections, no problem, and at that point my fingers will be getting warmed up again. And after a couple of days of working through that, then, I'll kind of be back, in it. But yeah, and then working through the rest of the stuff. But the lines get longer, and the BPM gets faster, and and like that section 30 for me, it's kind of hitting a wall on those. So maybe what I'll do is slow down and not try, just make it applicable to me, and do what I can, and hopefully I can just progress through that then.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, that sounds good.
Yeah. All right, listeners, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, what are you learning, and where are you learning it? And what did you learn about learning? How do you learn? What techniques work for you in reinforcing your learning? I'm curious to have that conversation.
Yeah. So,
well, thanks everyone for tuning in.
Yes.
Appreciate you all. Appreciate your comments and your likes, and thanks for joining us once again on a Saturday morning or whenever.
Right. Have a great week. Cheers.
Cheers.